Okay, good morning, everybody. It's just gone 11 o'clock. We'll give attendees and delegates a minute or two to just join the call, and then we'll make a start in a minute or so or 2 minutes once people start to join. Okay, morning, everybody. I think we'll make a start. We are expecting a few more who will let in as the meeting goes along, but we'll make a start because we do want to keep it to 45 minutes. So, good morning. Welcome back to the MEANZ Business Net Zero Insights webinar series. We are recording this session. I think the recording has just started, and we'll be muting participant mics throughout. So please use the chat function if you need to communicate with us. And just please make sure on your end that your Teams mic is turned off to avoid background noise. We do have a couple of short polls as well, so you'll need your smartphone handy or your browser open to either scan the QR code or use the code on screen. And we will be sharing the slides from today's session with attendees. So please don't worry about taking too many notes. So this is the fourth webinar out of 8 online webinars that have been delivered as part of our Net Zero Insights webinar series. My name's Conor O'Dornan. I'm the Net Zero Innovation and Delivery Manager in Mid and East Antrim Borough Council. I'm responsible for implementing the MEANZ business project, which this Net Zero Insights series is part of. This webinar is all about sustainable practices to attract customers, as you can see. And we have 2 great speakers joining us today. You can see on the screen. They're going to help us understand the concept of sustainable practices and how it can be put into practice, and then in turn what it might mean for your business. So firstly, we'll hear from James Dunlop at the Carbon Trust, and then we'll hear from Alan Lowry of Environmental Street Furniture. So just to make a start, the first thing we'll do is put the QR code for the Slido on screen. So either use your smartphone to scan the QR code or join us at slido.com with the code 3377872. We are going to be doing a short poll at the start and at the end of the session, so please do feedback. It helps us greatly with our tracking, our learning from the project. So if we move on then to what we're going to cover on today's agenda, you're obviously hearing from me now doing a quick introduction of what the project is and why we're here. I'll run through kind of what the MEANZ business project is and how this fits in. I'll then be passing over to our expert speakers. So James is a senior manager at the Carbon Trust. You might recognise him from one of our previous webinars. He'll share his thoughts on sustainable practices and what it might mean for your business. And then particularly how you can use it to attract customers. James will then be followed by Alan, who's the CEO and Managing Director at Environmental Street Furniture. Alan will give you some insights into the ESF approach to sustainable practices and how they are attracting customers as a result of them. We'll then have a Q&A with our speakers, so please do use the chat function to share any questions you might have for either James or Alan. And then we'll close out this morning's session with a final poll and a quick summary. So exactly what to expect. We are committed to keeping this to 45 minutes. We'll have 10 minutes from each of our 2 speakers. We'll then ask you to post your questions in the chat throughout those sessions from James and Alan throughout their speaking slots. We are recording the session, and then we get your feedback hopefully via the polls. So to very quickly set the context, I mentioned the MEANZ Business Project, which is the Mid and East Antrim Borough Council's net zero business project. So the objective of that is an Innovate UK funded project under the Net Zero Living programme. It's all designed to help local authorities to address non-technical barriers to achieving net zero targets. And one of those is about capacity, capability, awareness, and understanding. So that's where we've got these webinars from. We want to try and increase the understanding and knowledge of decarbonisation and net zero, not just across Mid and East Antrim Borough Council's industry network, but further afield as well. So there's four work packages. The first one is this Insights programme, which is part of this knowledge transfer and sharing of best practice. We then have a range of corporate decarbonisation projects. So we're doing some data analysis internally. We have a net zero skills mapping project as well in council. We've then been working hard with industry around their decarbonisation journeys, both their planning and their emissions reporting, and some practical interventions for them. And then we have a Future Ready programme, which is a wraparound support programme provided by Innovate UK, which is all about sharing the insights and learning of the projects. We're one of 50 plus projects under the Net Zero Living programme across the UK. And there's a big drive to try and share all of the learning from each of those. So the next screen then is our first poll question, or should be, yep. So we just wanted to ask, we do this at the start of each of these webinars, what are the biggest challenges your business or your organisation faces in reducing your own carbon footprint? And even if you have been on a previous webinar and you have answered this before, please do answer it again. So if you scan the QR code, I'll just do it myself while we're doing it. If you scan the QR code and then answer with which is the biggest challenges, and if there's more than one, that's fine, but choose the biggest challenges that you face in reducing your own carbon footprint. And we'll give a minute or so for attendees to sign that. So knowledge and expertise, great to see that at the top of the list, given that today is about sharing the expertise we have with James and Alan and sharing their knowledge and their experience as well. See, I select my own answers. Okay, send. Okay, kind of half of you have answered, just over half. We'll give that another minute or so. This might go off the bottom of the screen. I think there might be more options you will see in your when you're doing it on your phone, but they might not all show up. Just the top answers will show up in us. So fleet decarbonisation, no surprise. And these are obviously areas of focus that we understand to be the most challenging. So it's just us trying to gather data on which you find the most challenging. Okay, Donna, if we move on then. Again, we try and track this through each of these webinars. We'd like to know whereabouts you are on your journey. So anywhere from haven't thought about it yet to we're just beginning to plan, right through to we are well advanced or we have completed net zero. If there is other, just select other and share any further thoughts you have in the chat. Again, we'll give this another minute or so for people to respond. Should come up, I think, automatically on your phone if you've already scanned the QR code. So lots of people, well, 8 responses so far, but of those, either beginning to plan or they have a plan or implementing it yet. So nobody's saying they haven't thought about it yet, but equally nobody's saying that they would consider themselves well advanced. I would be interested to hear maybe from Alan and James at some point, maybe at the end, where they think they are on that journey, given that they're sharing their experiences today. Okay, more than half of you responded again. Okay. So beginning to plan. We do this as an Innovate UK cohort with all of the other projects, and we've been doing it now for 2 years, and they ask us this question at each event, which is why we've replicated it here. And it's interesting to see that depends really which specific part of your organization or your operations you're talking about. Some of it is further advanced. So this really one is as an organization as a whole, where are you? Okay, 13 have responded, so we'll move on. James Dunlop, who we've already introduced, Senior Manager at Carbon Trust, is going to take us through his presentation now. So I'll just hand over to James, and then James will hand over to Alan once he's finished. Don't forget, post your questions for James and Alan in the chat, and we'll try and pick them up as part of the QA. James?
That's great. Thanks very much, Connor, for introductions. I'm James Dunlop. I'm a senior manager with the Carbon Trust. I'm based here in Belfast in Northern Ireland. So today I'm going to talk about sustainable practices for attracting customers. And I think, building a winning reputation by developing your ESG credentials is beneficial, and working with companies over the last 15 years, I think what I've found is that a lot of companies that are well managed, have good ESG plans in place, are getting those twin aims of building a good reputation, attracting customers, and also having a positive environmental impact as well. So if we move on to the next slide, I'll just give you a little bit of background on the Carbon Trust for those of you who aren't familiar with us. So our mission is to accelerate the move to a decarbonised future. We've been working with companies and governments over the last 20 years through our sustainability consultancy efforts. We've got offices across 5 continents and in around 400 staff members across the world. So I guess today's topic centres on ESG. And if we look at the next slide, I guess the first point to pick up on really is, what is ESG? So it's really environmental, social, and governance aspects. So good practice on ESG really means looking at these aspects alongside your financial performance in your business and giving it the proper attention. So environmental issues can include things like climate change, which has been the focus of some of our other presentations, also biodiversity, pollution, water scarcity issues. So a lot of ground covered just in that one topic. The aspect of social issues can cover things like labour standards, health and safety, human rights, customer responsibility. And on the governance front, we're thinking there of aspects like tax transparency, corporate governance aspects, risk management, anti-corruption. So it's really a massive area that's being considered whenever we think of just those 3 letters in ESG. So it's quite a wide area to think of, but today the focus is really on how do you make ESG work for your business. So if we look then on the next slide, in effect, building a reputation through good ESG credentials will act to attract customers. It does take a strategic and committed approach, which will pay off in the long run. So it's not necessarily an easy fix, but giving these aspects the appropriate level of attention will be beneficial. And I guess in doing that, firstly, if you're able to set suitable goals, it will be beneficial. So laying these out in a clear way and aligning with recognizable targets like the UN SDGs or with SBTI targets, as we picked up on before, will help customers understand what your plans are. Secondly, looking at regular public reporting on your sustainability efforts helps to get that message out there. So transparency builds trust with stakeholders and encourages continual improvement. Thirdly, looking at how you align with certifications and standards that are set, again, gives that recognition to your sustainability efforts and helps to validate those and to build credibility with your stakeholders. And in practical terms, looking at aspects like circular economy, embracing practices to reduce waste, reduce materials, and include recycling in your plans, that can help not only your own sustainability journey, but also that of customers as well. And then lastly, bringing that all together into a business strategy is important. So making sure that all of these efforts aren't just enhancing your sustainability aims, but they're also meeting your customer needs is very important. And in doing that, it's crucial to involve employees, customers, any of your investors to understand how your sustainability efforts can align with them and can benefit your business as well. So if we move on then to the next slide, the first point that we picked up on there is alignment with recognizable targets. So in the previous presentation I was involved in, we talked a lot about decarbonisation efforts and net zeros targets. So an important recognizable standard on that is the Science-Based Target Initiative. And if you're looking at carbon reduction plans, aligning with SBTi goals can be beneficial. Not necessarily all companies will want to sign up to SBTi targets and have that published on their website as such, but at the same time, looking at the key principles can be beneficial, and aligning your strategy with those aims gives something that people recognize in terms of your approach to sustainability and to decarbonisation. Also looking at aspects like the UN Sustainability Development Goals can give you alignment and recognition on your sustainability efforts. So I think the SDG goals are very lofty and very important. They're looking at aspects like no poverty, zero hunger, improving gender equality, and I guess improving the world that we live in more generally. But I think when you're looking at your own sustainability goals, having linkages to these can help get the message across as to your thinking around sustainability and around your ESG efforts. And then if we move on to the next slide, getting that message out there is important. So reporting regularly and transparently is beneficial. A good example here is with AG Bar. They're a company that I've worked with over the last 5 years. You'll recognize them for their Iron Brew soft drinks. And you can see here in their financial report, they've not only laid out how they're aligning with science-based targets, what their current scope 1, 2, 3 footprint is, but they've also brought through non-financial KPIs that cover a range of issues there, looking at health and safety, looking at areas around gender equality, looking at waste, looking at their carbon emissions as well, and looking at water efficiency measures. So they've put a lot of time and attention into that to have those details in their annual report alongside their financial details. You can see also on the right how they've aligned with UN SDGs and picked out the key ones that they are linking their plans in with. So I guess this is a good example of a PLC, a larger company doing this, but taking the opportunity to get your message out there in whatever format suits best can be beneficial, and will help customers understand what your plans are around sustainability. And then another area on the next slide is the use of certification around standards to build credibility. So there's some areas that the Carbon Trust would pick up on directly. We provide organizational carbon footprints, we provide product carbon labeling, and there's other organizations out there like B Corp, CDP, that provide internationally recognized standards for sustainability. So aligning with those where appropriate can be beneficial. It might be the case that these are a little bit too complex for all businesses, but if you're, for example, involved in sale of wood products, looking to pick up FSC certification to make sure that your timber products are sustainably sourced, can be beneficial. But I guess the key point really is that there's a recognition of some of these labels here, which your customers will understand and will see that that you're working with on your sustainability efforts. And again, this is a matter of getting what fits for your own organization. And I think there's a lot of practical things that can be done if we come on to the next slide. And looking at how you approach your waste streams, how you look at your circular economy practices, reducing waste, reducing materials in your products, improving the recyclability. That improves not only your own environmental performance, but also that of your customers who are buying your products. And again, looking to integrate sustainability into your business strategy is very important, and it ensures that all business decisions consider the environmental and social impacts. So bringing stakeholders and customers in on that will be beneficial. Their input and feedback can help drive your strategy for green practices and enhance your environmental credentials. And I guess, as Alan's going to come on to shortly, meeting your customer needs through your sustainability actions is very important, and making sure that your approach to ESG fits your business is key. That's something that Environmental Street Furniture have done very well, and I'll pass on now to Alan to tell his story of his work in that area.
Thanks, James. Appreciate that. Very interesting and great to see some of the stuff that we're doing is along the right lines. My name's Alan Lowry. I'm the CEO and founder of Environmental Street Furniture. We're a Newtonabbey-based business. I also have the pleasure of volunteering for the government as an export champion to encourage other local businesses to export, and I'm also the chair of the Federation of Small Businesses in Northern Ireland. So I have a busy time along with running my own business, but I'm delighted to have the opportunity to be along here today, and thanks Connor and the team for the invite to do that. I thought it was very interesting. Obviously ESG, as James has been talking about, is very much been a buzzword now for a long time. And whenever you've got a company called Environmental Street Furniture, it's always the first question in people's lips whenever they say to you, what exactly makes you environmental? And I think probably if we look at the next slide, whenever we started the business, the word environment just meant being outside. Many of you may recognise this picture. It's actually the Mo Mowlam Park up in Stormont in Belfast, where we were delighted to supply a lot of our furniture a few years ago. So we got away with that excuse of saying the environment was only the outside for quite a while until people started challenging us. And I suppose we were challenging ourselves as well. And we started looking to see how we could become more environmental. So we started looking at our supply chain. We started looking at different materials we could use. We started looking to see if we could integrate solar technology and wind technology into some of our products. And the things that drove that are the things that you'll see in the slide now. It's things like climate change. It's terminology like carbon neutrality, things like global warming. A lot of the buzzwords that you've heard bandied about all over the world in local elections and so on lately, where people are really trying to forge plans and change how they've done things. So that really caused us to step back and look and see how we could do it. And obviously with an eye on export, because obviously we're very much an export-focused sales business, despite our locality in Newtonabbey. It's basically taken us the whole way around the world. And you'll see in the next slide that we've included some of the hot spots on our world travels, the first one being Larne Town Centre, of course. Right up there. Some of the other local ones where we've had great success in working with their environmental aims would be Belfast Harbour. This is down at the cruise port in Belfast Harbour, and one of the Disney cruise liners in there. This is what's called a smart flower product. So basically it's a solar generator that is capable of turning to follow the sun the same way a smart sunflower would. And it generates enough energy to run the customs terminal there that they have in the background where they check passports and stuff. We've then been successful in fitting one of those up on Armagh Observatory and Planetarium just actually last year, along with the wind tree there as well, which I'll come on to in a while. The bottom left is the expo in Kazakhstan, where we were challenged with providing some energy where they couldn't actually get electricity to it. So we were able to work with them. And then through some local council partnerships, we went out to Arizona Arizona a few years ago, and this is one of our solar benches, which was actually made in Ballymena. That we sold out to Gilbert Parks. And when I say solar bench, I'll explain that a little bit more in a minute. And the bottom right-hand picture is Global Village in Dubai, where we were also very successful in supplying products to those as well. So, so our product development has been something that's very much been forged by our clients. When we went into the export market, we had a focus on theme parks, and we struggled to get appointments with theme parks. We didn't pitch low. We pitched for people like Walt Disney World and Universal Studios and SeaWorld. And we managed to get a meeting with SeaWorld back in 2016. And one of my opening lines as a salesperson was, what challenges do you have? What can we maybe help you with at the moment? And one of the challenges they came up to us was that they found that people were actually leaving their parks, particularly children wanted to leave their parks whenever their mobile phones died. And upon investigating this a bit more, it turned out that if kids couldn't Snapchat and tweet and share on social media their experiences when they were in a park with their parents, they didn't want to stay any longer. So the park had a challenge whereby they needed to provide some sort of facility to allow people to charge their phones in the park so they would stay longer, extend their food and beverage purchases, buy more merchandise, and all the things that theme parks like to do. So on an initial concept, we developed a stand-up charging unit for them, which then developed into this solar bench, and this is sort of phase 2 of the solar bench. So the picture on the left looks very much like wooden slats on a standard steel bench. Those are actually solar panels that are built into that bench. They collect the energy, they store it in a battery system, and it allows you to charge your phone wirelessly with 2 QI chargers, wired with 4 USB and USB-C plugins. But it also allows us to put a SIM card into the bench that can actually generate Wi-Fi. And they can actually then extend their Wi-Fi around the parks, which again obviously helps with their food and beverage and various other things. And on the next slide, you'll see where we developed that a little bit further. Because when we started supplying these into inner cities, they started asking us, can we provide charging facilities for scooters, electric bikes, different things that could be done. We also have a version that actually has a pump inside it to allow you to pump your tires up in your bike. And then you've got spanners and screwdrivers and stuff. So it's very much looking at the whole sustainable environment. If we want to get people out of cars, we want to get them using public transport, more sustainable modes of transport. We believe that our benches played a very key role in that. And this one shows obviously our Cyclo version as well, as you can see with a very nice version there. So on the next slide, I mentioned earlier about our wind tree. So this is an aluminium tree. It's a bit deceptive. It actually stands 11 meters high. And on this tree, it has got what's called an aero leaf. So if you imagine that most places will put up large wind turbines, this will generate as much energy as a large wind turbine, but certainly looks a lot more aesthetically pleasing than having a huge wind turbine outside your premises. So the aero leaves catch the wind. Obviously, we get a lot of wind in Northern Ireland, a lot more than we get sunshine. So it's a great solution. We have installed one of these, as I said, up in Armagh Planetarium just last year, where they're looking to capture the wind energy. They're then going to report on that and use that as an educational tool for the schools that come in to do visits there. So they put one of our smart flowers in to show solar technology. They put this wind tree in to show the wind technology. And we're also looking at putting in one of the kinetic footpaths, so that the kids can come along and jump up and down in the footpath and generate energy as well, just to show the different ways that energy can actually be generated, rather than just from what they might think from the large wind turbines or from power stations. And on the next slide, we've taken that solar technology a step further. So this is our award-winning Bright Bin. And this bin is a solar-powered bin that actually compacts the litter inside the bin. Now, the thinking behind that is, one, if you're in a very high usage area, obviously the bins fill very quickly. But secondly, if these are being used, particularly in council routes, for decarbonisation, these bins can hold up to 10 times the litter of a normal bin. So we've recently supplied 70 of these to a local council in Northern Ireland, and basically they can now plot their routes for their vehicles going out only to go to the vehicles, or only to go to the bins that actually need emptied. on a weekly basis. And inside each of those bins is actually a wheelie bin. So there's no issues with weight. One of the original concerns was if you kept compacting the litter, there would be weight issues. So we've started to put these in the car parks in shopping malls, shopping centres, town centres, right along loch shores and so on. And they can actually record all the information of how often the bin's used, how often it compacts, and when it needs emptied as well. And again, it's foot operated, so there's no need to touch it. And it's a completely sealed unit, so you don't have any issues with vermin or anything like that getting into that. So I just wanted to talk, just to conclude my presentation today, about one of the more recent things we've been doing, our Wombles collection. I'll give you a quick backstory to this, and just to let you see the way my mind works and the way potentially you need to think about this in your own business. So my wife and I, as we're getting a bit older now, decided that we would like to start doing some touristy things around the UK. So we joined historic royal palaces, of which, of course, Hillsborough is one in Northern Ireland. So we took it upon ourselves in our first year to visit them all. So we went to the Tower of London, and we went to Clarence House and all the others. And the one that we hadn't been to was where King Henry VIII lived, and we decided that we would get the train down to the palace. And on the train, we drove past Wimbledon Common. And on the way past Wimbledon Common, I said to my wife, being a 70s child, "Oh, you remember the Wombles who lived in Wimbledon Common and they collected rubbish and made stuff from it?" And my wife turned to me and she says, "Yes, is that not what you're doing?" And I said, "Yes, that's exactly what we're doing." So we, having sung the Wombles theme tune a couple of times through on our train journey on the way down to Hampton Court Palace, we decided once we got back that I would do some investigation into finding a bit more about what was happening with the Wombles, if they were still about. And upon finding the guy in London who actually owned the rights to the Wombles, lo and behold, they were about to relaunch the whole Wombles programme as them being the original recyclers. And they've just made some TV shows with Richard E. Grant, and they're just in the throes of making a Hollywood movie, which is actually going to be out at the end of 2025 with regards to the Wombles. So it paired exceptionally well with our new range of recycled plastic products. And the next couple of slides just show you a couple of the things that we've done. So what we've done is we've taken Wombles characters. Here's probably the most famous one, Great Uncle Bulgaria. And we've partnered them along with our products, which are made from 100% recycled plastic. So we're taking post-consumer waste, we're cleaning it, we're chipping it, we're forming it into lumber, and we're making products out of it. So this is a compact bench that we've designed. What we've done along with this is we've developed a 13-part program for schools. So we're looking to educate schools through this package as well. We're going into that. We're making that available free of charge to all schools to teach them about living outdoors, how children can live in the outdoors. And if you want to flick through the next few slides, Donna, just it'll let you see some of the other products we've done. This is, again, it's the same bin, which we saw earlier, a bright bin. Only in this occasion, we've developed it with Tobermory. And again, just being able to use that. And these products have already made their way to places like Qatar. We've worked with a lot of local schools within the UK and within Ireland as well. And we hope that as the movie comes out, it gives us an opportunity to be able to talk to kids more, hear some of the play picnic tables. It's also encouraging children to get outdoors. You know, we've talked for a long time now about kids being inside playing on PlayStations and various video things. So this is a great encouragement to let them get outdoors, be able to play in the outdoors, and have their lunch in these tables as well. So I do think that that's something that's going to be really good for us. So look, that's a little bit of our story. I could probably talk for hours and hours, but I think Connor might cut me off. So that hopefully gives you a bit of a flavour as to how we've developed products to keep in with what our customers are looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you, James. And yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, whenever we met Alan to get the brief on what he was going to talk about, we were intrigued to hear that Wombles was going to be part of it. Slightly before my time, I'm an 80s child, but certainly still remember the Wombles and looking forward to picking all that stuff up again as it's relaunched. There are a couple of questions in the chat from Frank and Karen. So do panel think mood music from Trump administration will slow down momentum in companies worldwide in terms of considering or adopting ESG? And also, is there a single standard UK or international a single standard emerging. So the first part, are we thinking that the Trump administration is going to slow this down, or is it here to stay? Direct to James or Alan, whoever.
Well, I'm happy to take the first part if James takes the second part,
Sure.
because he'll know more about it
Yeah.
than I will. I was in Washington, D.C. About 2 weeks after the election. As part of my role with the FSB, I was actually on my way to a conference in Orlando. And there's no doubt that there was a definite change in tack with regards to the whole ESG conversation. Now, I do think a lot of that was probably a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. What you were finding in the States, from my perspective, was that if you looked at the West Coast, there was a great adoption of ESG around California and some of the states there. If you looked at the East Coast, it wasn't looked at as something that they really felt was high on their agenda. If you look at how the election was won, it was won on simple things like money in people's pockets and stuff like that. So I do think that the momentum will slow down slightly. I think it'll come from a different angle. You know, if you look at Elon Musk being in the right ear of Trump, and he's sitting there with his Tesla car brand, who still want to sell electric cars despite Trump saying you can drive petrol and diesel cars. It's definitely not going to go away. It's definitely going to be there. So I think what you might see is an initial slowdown, but I do think that momentum will definitely pick up again. And I'll hand over to James with regards to the standardisation.
Yeah, no, thanks, Alan. And I'd agree there. You know, I think it will have had an impact certainly in the short term, but I think there's too much momentum behind the clean energy transition and too much money behind the clean energy transition in particular to slow things down too much. So that continued investment in renewable infrastructure, in electric vehicles worldwide, I think will probably surpass the impact that Trump has had in terms of his plans in America. In terms of single standards for the UK or internationally, I guess there has been quite a lot of movement in Europe over recent years. They've brought in CSRD legislation, which is requiring companies really to lay out their transition plans. So that's having an impact on a lot of companies we'd worked with in the Irish Republic and across Europe. We're likely to see similar requirements coming through in the UK. They're likely to adopt the ISSB standards, which is a new position that's likely to come through this year. That'll encourage companies to do more to lay out how they're going to go about their transition plans, what their actions are likely to be, what financial impact that will have. So I think probably in Europe and the UK, there's probably going to be more in terms of standards and requirements coming through in the ESG front in the years ahead.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you. We do have another question, I suppose, just thoughts, obviously the conflicting messaging given everything that's going on in the States at the minute. And I think 2024 was the first year we saw a 1.5 degree increase in temperature. And then obviously you look at the extreme weather we're going to have even tomorrow. I think we're predicted to have up to 90-mile-an-hour winds here tomorrow. And then at the same time in the States, we have drill baby drill, I think was the term that Trump used. So yeah, challenging environment, no doubt. The other question from Karen is actually one that I was thinking myself, obviously off the back of your presentation, Alan, all of your street furniture work, you obviously have plans with the Wombles work as well. What other big things are there on the horizon for you? Is it different pieces of equipment, or is it staying in that environmental street in the street furniture arena and focusing on that? What's next?
Normally when somebody asks me that, I say to them, you tell me. But I think, you know, what we're finding is that, you know, solar technology is getting much more mobile now. It's much easier to integrate solar technology into things. We'll definitely stay in the outdoor furniture realm because that's what we've known for well, certainly for me, over 40 years now. I think lighting is going to be something that's going to see a lot more in solar. I actually initially was a lighting engineer before I came into street furniture, and lighting is always a passion that I've had. And I think in the past, we haven't really been able to get that right with regards to the amount of energy needed and how it's distributed and how you can do that. But if we could light our roads with solar technology and even light a lot of our back roads with solar technology lights, it would be so much cheaper because you're not digging up to put cables in, and you're not having all those issues. You don't need large lighting columns that people hit in their cars and stuff like that. So I do think that lighting is probably one of the things that'll be impacted a lot by solar technology. But we've a lot of other things happening as well around, again, sustainable movement, things like more usage of scooters and scooter locking devices and stuff like that, that we're looking at as well. So, but a lot of it is very much customer driven. A lot of it, James mentioned earlier about science-based targets. If you look at Disney, for instance, Disney's environmental criteria state they'll have 60% of their suppliers on science-based targets by 2027. So if we want to remain a supplier to Disney, that's something we as a company are going to have to do, and make sure that we comply with that. So there'll be a bit of it around compliance, but I think a lot of it will be around where our customers want us to drive the product lines.
Yeah. And that's a great way to finish today's Q&A session, obviously, given that we were talking about how you use this approach to attract customers and understand what your customer needs is the whole point of it. So brilliant to hear that insight. Donna, if we can move on, conscious of time, we've got 5 minutes left. We'll run through, I think there's 2 or 3 questions here just to try and track your learning. So very quickly, 30 seconds, has your knowledge and understanding of the sustainable practices increased during this webinar? The QR code again is on the screen if you need it. If you could, yeah. So starting to see some answers coming through now. We'll give this 30 seconds or so. Some people are still unsure, but the vast majority of respondents saying that their knowledge and understanding has increased. As I say, we'll share the slides, so you'll be able to look back through some of the information there. And if you do have any further questions, just pick up with us. The next question, I think along similar lines, if we can move on, Donna, is how likely are you to implement any of the ways that you've seen today to develop sustainable practices within your own organization or business? So a little bit more tricky. Some of them obviously might be relevant for you and some not, but this approach of understanding exactly what your customer needs and where their challenges lie, and building your sustainable practices around that. So unsure and likely being the 2 key answers. So yeah, around about 50-50 for those. And then final question, I think, is what are the most significant barriers? So we ask this quite a lot, and we ask this on each topic. What are the key things that stand between you and sustainable practices in your own business or organization? Budget or investment, unknown return, expertise sometimes. Yeah, so this is always a bit of a mix. It just really depends on the circumstances within each organization and what it is that they're trying to do. So it's just to help us get an understanding of that. So give 10 more seconds for any further answers there. Yeah, resistance to change quite high up, which is interesting. Probably within organizations, maybe within staff, potentially. Okay, final slide then, or final 2 slides, I think, if we move on. Just quick overview, the 3 webinars, or the 3 dates on the left-hand side, the first 3 dates on the left-hand side of the webinars we've done so far. Our next one's 27th of February. I've shared in the chat the link to where you can find out and where you can sign up for the remaining webinars. So February will be green business practices. April will be carbon accounting and emissions reporting. Thursday will be circular economy, so wasting less and profit more. Or sorry, May will be wasting less and profit more. And June will be sustainable investment planning, so all around the finance element. So as we approach 11:45, move to the final slide. As I say, we will share these details. Those are my details. If there's anything else you want to follow up on, and we can liaise with the speakers and get any other information you need, but we'll share the slides. I suppose other than that, not to keep us past Q2, all that's left to do is thank James and Alan for taking the time out to join us this morning. I know Alan's not even in the country, so great to have him online with us this morning. And you know where to find us. Please do sign up for the next webinar on the 27th of February. A couple of really good speakers lined up for it, and for the remaining webinars beyond that. So thanks again, everybody. Thanks to Alan and James, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye now.